Okay, good. Well, I think we're going to just, hi Pam, we're going to go ahead and get started and call this work session to order. And hopefully you can hear us through these masks. We did an Arts Commission meeting in here this morning, and it really was a little bit difficult with the masks on to hear. So if I sound like I'm shouting at someone who can't hear, that's the case. We're going to start tonight with board and commission interviews, and we have Pete Ruger with us this evening. And Mr. Ruger is interviewing for the board, the library board. So Peter, what we'll ask you to do is stand up, tell us why you applied and what you'll bring to the table.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to meet with you. I served on the library board for a number of years, and a couple of years ago, my term expired. I think we have an outstanding library here, great staff led well by Tom Cooper. And I certainly enjoyed my service on the library board, and I would like to go back and continue that service to this community. We have excellent programs there that range from focusing on children to senior citizens of my generation. We work well with other libraries within the community through the municipal system, so that if we don't have a book that you want, they might be able to get it from Florissant or Kirkwood or other places that have it. We have an excellent leader in Tom Cooper, who I would like to continue to support, and the staff is excellent. I've had, beside prior service on the library board, I've had a career that has worked with nonprofits. I've been on a number of boards. I'm a former faculty member at Washington University, who created a clinic for nonprofit organizations and provided with students lots of service to them. I believe very deeply in the contributions that our library can make to the community, and I would like to return to the board and help continue to contribute. I must admit, in the interest of full disclosure, I'd probably be the most senior member on the board. I'll be 80 in September, but I'm still up and about and functioning, and would really like to return to the board.
Thank you.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Ruger? Thank you.
Okay, I would like to
very much.
I would like to leave with you a book that I've drafted a number of years ago for the volunteer lawyers and accountants for the arts on board duties and responsibilities. It's about 20 years old, but the principles still are excellent. So if I may leave that.
Thank you.
I think you have my resume. Do you know?
Yes, we have your resume
Okay.
here, and I'll be darned that you did this. I know about this book.
Good.
That's a really good guide. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for me?
Can we put you in contact with the North Webster Neighborhood Coalition? They need some help in forming a true nonprofit and everything.
Sure, you could have them contact me.
Oh.
And what I'm doing is also involving attorneys at some of the law schools or at private firms who have wanted to get involved with nonprofits. But please get a hold of me. My email and contact information is there.
Excellent. Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is Tammy here tonight? Tammy, same thing. You've applied for the Business Development Commission. Come on up and tell us a little bit about what you'll bring to the table.
Sure. So I'm the owner of Maypop Coffee and Garden Shop over at Marshall and Summit. So what we were hoping to do is to bring in some perspective from that district and maybe kind of what's going on, what we're hearing from the residents in that area, and also from some of the consumers that come to visit us because we get a very wide range. We get people from out of state. We get people that come hours away from other cities in both Missouri and Illinois. And we always try to engage and find out why, what's bringing them there, how is it bringing them here to Webster? And then we direct them to some of our business districts as well. So we hope to kind of share what's going on in our little corner, but also to be able to hear what's going on in some of the other areas and bring that back to them. So I think if we were to, one of our biggest strengths is in retail. I'd love to see retail grow more in Webster. I think it's wonderful, some of the neat things that we have going on in both districts now. I serve on a national organization in our industry, American Hort, where I am the leader of the retail connector group for the entire of North America.
Wow.
We also, even though we're like really tiny, we're kind of mighty in what we do and how we participate. And so we also participate with international initiatives to reduce plastic in our industry. And we served as a case study in that. And so we're happy to just sit at the table, be a part of the conversation, contribute in any way anybody would like, and help share that back to our neighborhood.
Wow, thank you so much. I know that the BDC has been trying to reach out into more than just the formal business districts. Does anyone have a question for Tammy? If not, thank you so much for applying for this position. We don't need
No
them.
one usually does.
I felt a little low.
Yeah. That's a new one for us.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
sure.
you.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Okay.
Let you know. Okay, great. All right, is there anything on the regular agenda that we need to do? If not, let's go around to our meeting issues and updates, and we'll just start with Neil and go around the table.
I don't have anything directly to report, Mayor. I do have a matter for close that we do need to talk about briefly, very
Okay.
briefly.
Great. Sarah?
I had a brief coffee with citizens yesterday, just to open time for people to come and talk, and had some great conversations with folks and about kind of what happens after today with the vote and things like that. And would continue to encourage folks to do that when they can. It was a really nice opportunity to talk to folks. I'm also attending the St. Louis Racial Equity Summit this week, starting tomorrow afternoon, running through Friday. There's still time to register if other folks are interested, but they have an amazing lineup of presenters and speakers and topics, and a lot of stuff that's relevant to what we're doing. And so would also kind of encourage that. But other than that, I don't have any updates.
Thank you. Emerson?
I have no updates, Mayor, but I do like for the council to consider in the very near future to sit down with goal setting,
Yes.
strategic planning that we need to get in place. We do that as quickly as possible.
Yes, we do need to do that. sir. Thank you. Laura?
Apropos to our most recent interview, the BDC met. There are lots of projects underway, including the working group recommendations designed largely to bring the different business groups together. So Tammy would be an addition, a great merit on that front. Also, they're talking about partnerships with the Sustainability Commission, so she checks that box as well. I guess consider me for this my endorsement on behalf of the BDC for her, but they have lots of things going on, none of which are fully to fruition, so I won't spend any significant time on them, except they are looking at a fall event, and then, which will be defined sort of maybe a scavenger hunt kind of event. And then Eric began a conversation with the BBC about business interest in civic spaces to see if we could connect some of our community events a little bit more specifically with the business community. And I think that will be an ongoing conversation. It was of great interest to the members of the BBC.
Great. Thank you. Katie? Marie?
Yes, ma'am. I do have a few things. An update on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the work being done. Just want to make sure people on Zoom can hear. We're really excited about the DEI work that's being done. So Gloria Carter Hicks and her team has finished all of the individual interviews with employees. And they're moving on to focus groups. And so we will have 60-ish employees selected for focus groups. They've taken all of our employee demographics, and they are randomly selecting the employees. We're not involved in that. And so it's been really good. The same with community groups coming up. Certain community members will be hearing from our consultants soon. We will also reach out just with a general letter and encouraging them to participate and to respond to the consultants. And that will be about 40 community members. So as soon as we have updates from that, we'll share that. But it's going along really well. So quite pleased. Had technology updates, as you may have saw when you peeked into the chambers. We do have the TVs up, and it makes quite a difference. We're not quite done with all the sounds and other items. We've run into some conduit issues in the wall, but those will soon be resolved, but it's already better. And then I also wanted to touch on the fire chief recruitment. As council members know, Chief Joey has not retired yet. I'm still trying to convince him not to.
It's still here.
Gonna be here for a while. Once you're in the room, you can't leave.
You're right.
So we're really sorry to see that happening, but as we find a replacement for Chief Joey, if replacement can even be a possible word, there will be some community involvement in that process as well. There's going to be a community survey upcoming. And last week we had a listening session with the fire department, and it was really well attended. I think almost all of the fire departments, either in person or on Zoom, attended and got some great comments back. So looking forward to that process and looking forward to Chief Joey as much time as he can be part of that process as well. Certainly a loss to the city. So wanted to share that. And that, Mayor, is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
If everyone can speak up just a little bit. Jennifer's listening and she can hear, but it seems like back here it's a little quieter. So if everybody can speak up
Okay.
Microphone's in
in the middle.
Yeah. Karen?
Yes, I do have from the library board. I did ask them in terms of replacing, there's 2 positions open on the board, and what particular things are they interested in, or do they think they would benefit most from the candidates that are available? And what stuck out, that they said someone with a legal background
Oh.
that, that could really help them, because one of their openings is for the policy committee. And so they felt that they could really use someone with a legal background to help them with that. I do have 3 other items that does not have to do with the board and commissions, but it was just on talking to citizens and some things that if this is appropriate time to, the one that sticks out most is traffic issues and speeding. And I actually, this is, I'll just share, I took the liberty of printing this out. This was just one of the citizens that lives on Elm, and she just talked about the challenges and with the traffic. But she proposed some things that she thought could be some recommendations to be considered. Ironically, so many people know, many don't, but I walk my dog a couple of times a day, or he walks me, whichever it goes. But I've just been talking to several neighbors, and it's just pervasive, just the speeding.
Yeah.
Even while I'm walking, and one evening I was on Bell Avenue and the people were speeding. So I don't know, Chief, what we can do. One of the things that I really encourage everyone to take a look at is, and the same citizen that sent this letter provided a YouTube clip, and I sent that to.
Was able to bring it up.
Okay, it is phenomenal, because basically what it is it's, and I think Kansas City is where they did it, but what they did is a student created a 3D crosswalk that's painted on the street, and it makes it appear that it's raised.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
A KCK neighborhood is working to slow drivers down with a unique crosswalk.
Take a look at this, right? It's a 3D crosswalk. Many countries like Canada and Iceland are now taking this approach to try to keep people safe. 41 Action News reporter Jordan Betts joins us live to show us how this new crosswalk ended up in the metro. Jordan.
Hey guys, okay, so when you look at this crosswalk, it looks as if it's coming up from the ground, which is kind of unique in which it makes it a 3D crosswalk. And so this is a neighborhood near Piper High School. And as you look at, just like I am, you're probably taking a look, stop and staring at it. And that's the city's goal, is that drivers slow down, take a look at the crosswalk to make sure nobody gets hurt. We see all kinds of crosswalks around the metro, but this is a first. It all started when a local homeowners association saw a major problem: people driving too fast.
We're very family oriented, and a ton of families live in this neighborhood, lots of little kids, myself included.
So they took action. The city first installed speed limit signs, but neighbors said it wasn't enough.
There are some speed studies out here to try to figure out how fast people are going and try to see what we can do to fix the situation.
The fix: installing a new crosswalk, a 3D crosswalk.
This is a location where the sidewalk crosses to the other direction. So we wanted to mark it, kind of calm down the traffic.
City officials found the idea online and thought it'd be a good concept for the neighborhood. The new crosswalk cost around $500, a little more than a normal crosswalk. Officials say this is a test run and hope to put more throughout KCK.
The drivers are alert to the location where we want everybody crossing. And we also want the kids, to also find fun to follow the markings.
And neighbors think so as well.
I think it will help. I think that lots of things help. It's just one step of many to help keep the children and everybody safe in the neighborhood.
Neighbors tell me there have been no major crashes in this area, but if people don't slow down, that could result in happen. Now, Public Works will meet with the HOA here in a few weeks to a few months to see if there needs to be any improvement and if this crosswalk really made a difference. Live in KCK, Jordan Betts, 41 Action News.
Take time.
So as I looked at that, I thought that was pretty interesting. And so I even, I don't know if it's something that, in addition to the things, the suggestions that she's offered here, I invite everybody to take a look and some conversations, but that in particular, I thought was a great opportunity for maybe even a collaboration between the police department, the police community engagement board, the high school students, and Public Works. So I don't know, Neil, what the logistics are from a legal perspective, any of that, but I thought that was a really good idea. But that was, again, the suggestion from Ann Camp on Elm, but I've had the same concerns on Bell Avenue on Holland. The other question that I had was around street signs for children. Is there a cost? What is the cost? Is there a cost for putting signs up, caution, children live here, or whatever, for driving? I don't know what that process is. That
works? That's Todd.
Yeah, a lot of places do not meet the criteria that's set forth in the manual on uniform traffic control devices.
So why don't you inform us generally what those are?
Off the top of my head, it's a number of children within a certain block. And most blocks don't meet that criteria. Maybe the entire street meets that criteria, but it's per block.
Okay.
Maybe you should tell the council what that manual is, because we have new council members here.
It's called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, the MUTCD. It's the Bible for traffic signs and signals, and police use it all the time. Public Works uses it all the time.
Have we adopted?
Fire department doesn't. He just said we don't.
Have we adopted it as a city?
Yeah, it's across the nation. It's adopted everywhere.
It's based upon engineering studies and detailed traffic studies. We have, and this is a little bit dated, so most council members probably don't remember this. We have reduced the requirements for stop signs. The council did pass that, so there was an amendment to that. So our criteria for stop signs has been reduced. But even with that, most of the stop signs that people are asking for don't even meet that lower standard.
As to the crosswalk, we could do that though. We just place it wherever you would normally place a crosswalk. I would want to do an ordinance, but it's easy enough to do that will allow us to do something out of the ordinary from what is an ordinarily recognizable crosswalk. But it's really not a crosswalk, right? It's really designed to look like something else. It can double. So we do it by ordinance, but we have the authority to do it. So it's designed to be an optical illusion that creates, that people see and causes them to slow down.
Mhm.
We could address that.
Okay.
And sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Can I say something really quick? I was just gonna say, I know that Dr. Peoples has requested our input on to recommencing the Traffic Advisory Commission, and that's something obviously I sit on and been pretty bored because we haven't met in over like 3 or 4 years. And I have been advocating that we need to reestablish that from the get-go, and I think this would be a perfect opportunity for citizens to have some input and say and where something innovative like this could go.
Okay.
Yeah, I spoke with Barrington today, she was expressing her concerns. Basically, she's just looking for something to notify the drivers that pedestrians cross. Probably the solution to start with. And we probably need to also think about, since the traffic will be for the school district, the change in going from up to Gibbons. Those kids are used to going across Brentwood to Avery. Now it's going to be a mass traffic change going in the opposite direction. It's probably good to look at something there. I know my street on Euclid, they zip. I mean, after 7 o'clock, they forget about the stop sign. They just keep straight on through. And that's not necessarily anybody who lives in the area, that's everybody. So we probably need to watch the traffic flow for the kids going from up to Gibbons as well.
So what does this do? I mean, what do we kind of next step to see? What do we?
So I talked to Mrs. Bearcamp as well. But she
So have I.
suggested that there was some ongoing study going on and things like that.
We've requested the additional traffic study. We did one in 2017, so it's an older study. It's 6 years old. I expected it probably will be similar, except I would agree that the speed probably has increased only because in the last year or so, primarily because of COVID, traffic enforcement has been reduced.
Yeah.
Since contacts, we tried with the police department to try to reduce that as much as possible. So, but we're trying to return to normal. We're trying to do more aggressive on the enforcement. I don't think we put that out yet because the construction is going on there. We would get an accurate.
Right. Yeah, the water
So
main.
as soon as the water, as soon as the construction is done there, Public Works is going to put out the counters and the speed counters. We'll get a traffic study, see what the speed is. There's also, we want to take a look at the traffic manual and the HSTA standards. I don't disagree. I think the 3D thing may be a good thing to try, but I'd also like to look at it when I respond to the Lord and that. There could be some negatives to it, but we don't, that you're not thinking about. So we want to take a comprehensive look at it. That's going to take a little bit. And in the meantime, in the interim, we have for the last 2 weeks, and we're continuing. We have 2 people on traffic assignments there on home, 3 to 4 hours a day. So the enforcement there is already increased considerably.
And Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Traffic Advisory Commission did meet once while I've been on the council, and that was for Avery. And we talked a lot about the speed. And there's a lot of studies out there that indicate even if you were to reduce the speed limit from 25 to 20, people still don't follow it.
It's just
Yeah, so the
High enforcement seems to be the best tactic.
Okay. So
And my final thing.
Yes.
Was, and this is a question, I think we all also received the letter about the Blackburn Park Monument. And my question is just, how does something like that get done? Is that just citizens or employees can get together and pool some money and just put a monument in a public place, or what's the process around that?
Typically, you would need permission to do it. I don't know how that particular one was done, but you would need permission. You can't just place it. You would get it through the Parks Department, or someone has to say, okay. So I'm not sure what this one was, but I mean, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know how it happened, Karen. I'm guessing that they got permission from either the Parks Director, but it probably from the city manager.
So if I can real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt, but for those that are watching, I think it's important that we share what we're talking about. So I believe, and please correct me, but I believe each of the council members and mayor received a letter from a community member expressing concern regarding the Upper Memorial that is in Blackburn Park. And so that's what the discussion is about. And I was not here at that time, but from talking with staff and researching the topic to answer your question, Ms. Alexander, is that permission was given. The Parks and Rec director, excuse me, took the request to the city manager at that time and it was approved. The other thing that I will note is that typically there are safeguards, if you will, in place for this occurring. We have a signage ordinance. Typically within ordinances, you have placement requirements, you have naming requirements, you have parameters, guardrails for that. We don't have that within our signage within that chapter. So that's something that we could look at for doing should council be interested in that. As it relates to this specific memorial, there are some decisions to be made. I believe the letter that was written, and I did not receive one personally, but I believe the letter requested that it be removed. So that is the question underway.
And I know that the conversation came up around petition. So if a petition were to be started to have that removed, what is the number of signatures that's required to have any action taken?
I think you have the authority, if you as a council would say, look, this is what we would like to have done and pass that on to the city manager. That was clear direction to the city manager. The city manager could address that.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go the route of a petition. I think Marie is hearing from a lot of us. I don't think we need to go the route of a petition. I think Dr. Peoples has heard enough from the public and council to make an appropriate decision.
I've heard from many council members, and I did not mean to make out that.
It's okay.
There's a couple I have not heard from yet.
You're not alone.
Even those that I have heard from, there is not consensus. I will say that this is not a topic that I necessarily am seeking consensus on. It's a sensitive topic. It's difficult. I simply wanted to hear input. This topic is hard. This was from everything that I've heard, a well-respected employee of the city. The topic crosses mental health, death by suicide, and domestic violence. Those are three areas our society has not determined how to deal with. It's a tough topic. So I appreciate everybody's input. I would welcome additional input from those that I haven't heard from. I suspect we may hear from community members after this discussion. I welcome that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm done.
The only thing I would like to bring up is whether the city has begun investigating whether we can mandate vaccinations for all our employees.
I have, and the answer is you can't. And that is a Supreme Court decision that goes back to 1905. And it makes it very clear that an employer can mandate that. We've seen this now in a variety of different places where employers have in private instances mandated that there be vaccines. We have the same authority to do that.
And if it hasn't been decided or if it's a council decision, I would just request that it be put on a future work session in the near future. That way we can discuss it.
Quite frankly, I think this is one of the cases where we can move a decision to the city manager who is responsible for the employees.
Right.
You guys just give me the nod. Let's do it.
Do what you,
Yeah, I think all employees should be.
well, whatever. I'm passing that decision on to you.
We happen to have had several conversations.
We have had several conversations, the we being Neil and myself. This is a topic as we all know, the COVID does not seem to be going anywhere as employers are going, or we all, whether employees or not, are going to need boosters. How do we continue to manage that? How do we manage it from a safety aspect, from a personnel aspect? Again, another very tough decision, and it seems to be the clearer and more effective and wiser decision is vaccine. We are seeing a lot of employers and in our region as well go towards that. Webster University, as you all probably saw, is requiring employees and students to be vaccinated. So it's something that's becoming more supported.
Pam, do you have something you want to add?
Hi. I do. Can you guys hear me okay? Let's see if I talk in a higher voice. I think that helps. The Green Space Advisory Commission met last night, and the goats are here. They are fenced in an area located at Elm and Kirkham, and they are there for targeted grazing in order to knock down weeds and invasive species. So they'll be there for a few more days if anybody would like to go by and take a look. There are about a dozen goats, so they're pretty cute. They've also completed the Future Trees of Distinction proposal, which will be a combination effort between the Parks Department and Public Works, and they are refining the presentations, which you all will see in a couple weeks in an upcoming work session. The next Plan Commission meeting is next week, Monday, August 9th. It will start an hour and a half earlier at 6 o'clock. The public hearing for Douglas Hill will continue, and there will be a public hearing for an auto service shop on Watson Road. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Mayor, on the topic of goats, I have to remind people, please don't feed the goats.
Yeah, they're here to eat the vine.
They're here to eat, that's right. I
That's
know it's
right.
tempting, but please don't feed the goats.
There was a crowd on the
There
street
is a-
watching.
Oh, wow.
They're popular.
Not surprised.
I don't have too much. The Police Community Engagement Board met and has a draft mission statement, really good discussion. That's a really good group. We're planning a fall event with the community and the police. The survey has been going out via all sorts of media, and it is now, I think we probably have close to 150 responses, which is just great. So if you haven't replied to the Police Community Engagement Board survey, please do so. The Arts Commission met this morning, and we have a couple of events coming up. The Piano Fest at the end of August next door at the Mason's Garden, whatever you want to call it. We're working on a Lifetime Achievement event in October or November. Certainly, those of you who went to the Burr Oak concert know that that was beyond successful. It was so wonderful. And the last thing I want to do is I want to thank Ivory Crockett, who did come here last week. We had a pretty good meeting with him. And Ivory is the one who put it up, but took care of that sign that's there that honors Dr. Givens, who was extremely important to him. So we want to thank him. It was very nice of him to do that. So, all right. With that, I think we can now go to our topics.
There are several.
There are several. Let's begin. Yes?
I was gonna ask if Mr. Wright would come sit up here so we could.
Oh,
have people do their
okay.
business.
All right. So Todd is going to do our facilities master plan. Mr. Ray.
Hey, Mayor. I'm here to talk about our city buildings and their infrastructure maintenance needs going forward. As you know, nothing's ever been put together. It's kind of just when things happen, we fix them. But we don't have a plan going forward, so we're trying to implement that plan. So city, oh, going too far. That's weird. Should be one more. That's a cloud. Is this not my original song? Yeah.
So I talk from that.
Mine hasn't.
We're gonna do it.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, so the buildings that we have is this building here, City Hall building, which includes the police department and Firehouse 1. The service center where street department works out of, and now public works is housed in there. Firehouse 2, which is being completely demolished and a new house being built. And then, of course, the recreation centers are out of the building. Thanks. So, History City Hall was originally built in 1931, and then we had a renovation in 2001. We had City Hall HVAC projects. The chiller was replaced in 2016. It has a 20-year life, so we have quite a ways before we have to replace that. The air handling units, AHU, those were recommissioned in 2017, where they came in, hooked up computers to them, calibrated them all to make them operate more efficiently. The fire department has a rooftop AC unit that had to be replaced in 2011. So if we were to do a full replacement of all the HVAC in the entire building, that would include a new chiller, 2 new air handling units, 2 new rooftop units, and 62 variable air valve units, which would be close to $1 million to do the entire building. We're not looking for that for probably at least another 15 years. So the HVAC equipment is the chiller, which I don't know if you've ever noticed the building or the big unit that sits down there by the parking lot in the fenced-in area. That's the chiller. That runs the entire system. And you have air handler, 2 air handler units, 2 rooftop units. Those are all upstairs in the attic and on the roof. And then there's 62 of the variable air volume units that control each office throughout the entire building. Wow. So the immediate needs, based on what we have to do, is our roof needs are coming to fruition. We need to do something with our roofs. There was a roof assessment that was done earlier this year. The company that's working with the fire department, the new firehouse, came to me and said, "Hey, you want me to look at your other buildings? I'll do it for free." I said, "Okay." So he came up with that at City Hall, all the flat roofs, their coatings are failing from the exposure to the sun and the weather. So they all need to be replaced, and that is $75,000 to replace all of the new roof coatings on the flat roofs. The asbestos tile roof needs a complete replacement, and he suggests a metal roof, which can be made to look like shingles or tiles or whatever you want, and has a 30-year warranty on it. And so that would cost us $120,000. So this was from his assessment book, and he prioritized by years. So in the first 2 years, you need to do the ones that are in red. So the building on the left is City Hall. The building on the right is the service center. And the bottom right building is an outbuilding at the service center. And for some reason, the R's got cut off on this. I don't know why. So it's supposed to say Webster Groves. So the red is the imminent needs, a majority of the flat roof at City Hall. That's over the council chambers. So that needs to be done. And then the yellow areas that could be done in a few years out, and then the green areas could be later. I'm looking to do them all in the next 5 years, and I'll have that later in another slide. So the types of roofs that here at City Hall, all the blue ones are the flat roofs, and then all the purple ones are the sloped with either shingles or asbestos tiles on.
That's the roof you want to do with the metal roof?
The metal roof, right? And they can make it look like it's a tile roof. So there's a picture of one of the coatings on the flat roofs that's failing. You see it's discolorized. It was supposed to be completely white. So it's fading and weathering. So it is at the point that it needs to be redone. And then we get I think it with the new coating on it, it gets a 10-year warranty with it. So
How long ago was it coated?
probably at least 20 years ago when we did the renovation in 2001. So some of the shingles are either missing or broken, and so if you look up on the roof, you can see these areas. Next one shows that's the asbestos tiles. If you look up the council chambers, you can see those. And then between the council chambers and the other roof over the fire department, we've got some air bubbles in that area there, which is water getting underneath that. So that needs to be addressed. So here's my 5-year plan for the roofs at City Hall. So next year we start flat roofs, $60,000 a flat roof, coatings replacement. And then 24, we would do the metal roof to get that all fixed up. And then we just have an outline, 15,000 for another flat roof that is in the best shape out of all the rest of the flat roofs. So that one can be held off for 5 years. So. And then the HVAC, like I said, the chiller was replaced in 2016. It has a 20-year life, so it doesn't need to have anything done to it until 36, unless we have a major malfunction on it. And then we'd have to get somebody in to give us a price, and I'd have to come to you for the money at that time. And to replace just the chiller alone, it's 600,000, projected in 36, FY 36. So I don't know if any of you noticed when you go to the front of City Hall, if you look up, that's what you'll see. The roof up under, the ceiling up underneath there is peeling and chipping away. So that needs to be completely scraped, resealed, and repainted. I have not gotten a price to do that yet. I'll have to come in with lifts to get up there because it's so high, and get a ladder. Well, I don't know if we can get a ladder up that high, probably, but I wouldn't want to be on the ladder. So that's another area of the building that needs to be addressed. So we'll move on to Service Center. It was originally built in 1968. It was renovated in 2006. And the HVAC unit was replaced in 2012. So the Service Center roofs was also done with that assessment. And it's majority of that, all the roofs there are flat roofs. So the majority of them that don't have the solar panels on them would be 160,000 to recoat all down. And then we would have to remove the solar panels, recoat that roof, and then reinstall the solar panels. That's why it's 225,000 for that. And so that's just the layout of the buildings, and everything there is a flat roof. There is no sloped roofs on the Service Center. This is some pictures of failing patches on the flat roofs at the Service Center. You see they put some tar around it to try and seal them, but it's coming apart again. See, it's kind of hard to see in the top one. There's kind of an opening there. He's lifting it up and you can see right through it. And there's another patch that's failing. And then this brick louver area, you can get behind it, so water can get behind there. So that needs to be all resealed. And then the 5-year plan for the roofs at the Service Center. Next year, do all the flat roofs, 159,000, and then do the roof with the solar panels, which will be 225,000 in 24. So other items for consideration at this building, tuck pointing of the exterior brick. If you don't know what tuck pointing is, it's all the mortar that's in between the bricks has to be filed out, sanded down, and then they put new mortar in there to tuck point it. The carpets have not been replaced since 2001. Time for people's wants to be carpet. I don't blame
I prefer to have a roof first.
Yeah, roof first. Priorities. And then eventually we're gonna have to replace hot water heaters. Right now they're working fine. So, and then in our break room we have kitchen appliances. We have a refrigerator, stove, microwave, ice machine. All those things are gonna break, and we're gonna have to have those replaced. Ceiling tiles throughout the building. Some of them have water damage, and some of them look like they're brand new. This is probably the best room, yes. So we're no water damage in here. So those are other issues that have to be addressed. And then to go along with the water damage, the gutters are starting to leak in areas, and we resealed them in that. But eventually, those are all going to have to be replaced, and they are brass copper gutters. So we're going to have to. We want to keep with that look. So that'd be expected. So the tuck pointing costs for City Hall is 45,000. The Service Center is just over 40,000. Because the Service Center also needs tuck pointing issues. They have cinder block walls at the Service Center, and so their tuck pointing needs to be handled. The Firehouse 2. These are the issues that we've had in the past, which hopefully are all going away with the new building. We've had HVAC issues. We've had dishwasher issues. We've had plumbing issues. So hopefully with the new building, I won't have to worry about maintenance issues at Firehouse 2 for quite a while, because most of it will be under warranty. And then the rec center, he just recently replaced the HVAC units on the roof. The elevator is going to be modernized this year. It's in the budget for this fiscal year. He's having issues with floors in the gym, the workout areas, and rec rooms. I think he's got the gym flooring this budget year.
Yeah.
And then he told me he's having ice rink issues with the refrigeration, and he shuts down the ice rink for 4 or 5 weeks in the summer. And that gives it new life or something. I don't know what it is. So, but if those issues, refrigeration issues were taken care of, then that rink could stay up in year round.
Some of that relates to the pool too, from what I understand from him, because the water from that's leaking kind of under the.
Yep.
He didn't tell me that.
Okay, sorry.
That could be. So.
But so we may be mitigating some of that, I guess. is what
When
I'm
we
saying,
do the
when
new
we do
pool, which is a couple years out.
Yeah.
And I have that in my final slide, which is my summary of the costs. So in this fiscal year, we have the HVAC and the elevator, so 380,000. Next fiscal year, we're looking at the roofs at the city hall and the service center. And then the rec center has the addition in there. And the next year, we would do the other part of the roofs, city hall, the service center. I have the aquatic center renovation, but I didn't include it in the total cost because we're gonna go up for a bond issue for that, I would think. So. And the other roof at City Hall, and then we go out to the service center HVAC in 32, and in 36 would be City Hall HVAC. And hopefully we don't have to do the entire building at that point, but that's all. Any questions?
That's all you have?
I went quick because I don't want to take it to the hard piece.
Great report, and I like the idea of creating a plan so we know what's in the horizon. But my concern is these flat roofs.
Yes.
I mean, they show wear and tear.
Yes.
And I know how they work. It finds a place to put water.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll come out 100 feet from where it came in. Any reason why we can't repair those things now?
Well, I'm doing the most desperate ones first, obviously. City Hall, there's one section of flat roof that is in really good shape, according to the guy that did the analysis. So it's the 15,000 that's the outlier. But the other ones will be all the other roofs, flat roofs at City Hall will be gone. And then the service center, they're not as bad as here because that one was done a little more recent than the City Hall renovation. So.
But the one that you showed, I think it's City
Yeah, those
Hall,
couple. Oh, yeah.
It was flat.
Yeah, that's the worst one.
That's the worst one.
Yeah, that's where the coating, it used to be entirely white, now you can see the black coming through.
Right, and that's the same building that needs the tuck pointing.
Correct.
And same building needs the gutter repair.
The gutters are probably a few years out.
Okay.
I haven't put those in the 5-year plan yet because I don't think they're probably 7 or 8 years out.
My question.
We had one big leak in the council chambers,
Yeah.
and it was a roof, or a gutter, and we got that taken care of. And then we had the plasterer come in and re-plaster that, and we haven't had any more water issues since. So.
I guess any reason why we wouldn't consider repairing that roof right now?
The sloped roof?
Flat roof. I think it looked like the flat roof is one you said that.
Yeah, that one's on the other side of the council chamber back here in the corner.
But it's in the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So any reason why we wouldn't repair that now?
That is the one I'm planning to do next year.
Well, you said next year.
In next year's budget.
This year.
Well, because
this year's budget.
I think the easy answer to that is we have no.
Because that gets to my question,
And we
which
haven't
is.
put together this plan yet, so I've just put this plan together. And
I just don't want
it'll
all of a
start
sudden we have an emergency, then we're coming back saying, well, we need to spend X amount of dollars.
Then we have an emergency, we deal with an emergency.
So this is really how we started, and thank you, Councilman Smith. This is really how we started down this path, as I was pretty alarmed, as you all know, that we did not have these items planned for in the budget. And there is no way around acknowledging that they have not been planned for the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I am really concerned that a lot of these things are gonna come due at once. And I really appreciate the work that's put into the plan and spacing out the years. But we all know, just like owning a household, things don't always break when you plan for them to break. So we do have to, our next steps, and myself and along, with Peterson and including everybody else, but really nailing that plan down. And we're gonna have to come to some funding decisions and determinations. Where is it going to come from? How are we going to do it? And those are not gonna be easy discussions. So that's just my preface to it. Not only are we trying to play catch up of fixing all of these things that are identified, but how are we going to do maintenance and think about future things? What do we want to do? Like school 3D sidewalks and other things, or crosswalks. How are we going to plan and build for these things? So
Well, just roofs are tricky. You start getting water, then it gets in the building, then you got to fix what it damaged. And It's just a vicious cycle, so.
If you walk around and look at ceiling tiles, you'll see the water damage.
We do have a lot of water damage.
Yeah, we've had it a lot. I mean, we were sitting here one night for a meeting and
Yeah. That was.
those tiles came down
That was a
in the
pipe. I
water.
don't
It
know
was a
what
pipe
that
that broke
was. Yeah.
under there.
Oh, I've forgotten about
Yeah, remember?
Now I remember.
Yeah, we were
The
just sitting
memories
here and
So is there a competitive,
Sits out front permanently. Is that on the sidewalk when you're entering City Hall?
Probably a section that was popped up.
It's
Just haven't repaired it yet.
So those are things, I don't know if I ever heard that question, but there's been a cone out in front of City Hall for the longest.
A what?
When you're- A cone when you're entering City
Yeah.
Hall steps and things like that. We've just, those have to be immediate
They-
concerns. It's danger to staff or community members coming in.
The decorative concrete out here is, we've had
It's
a
a
lot of
mess.
patching problems with it, so.
is there a competitive bid process for this? I mean, I know you said the guy volunteered to do the
Yes. Yeah, and.
estimate
And
for
his
free,
com-
sure.
and- and- Yeah, his company, Garland Company. They put the whole packet, the bid package together, and they contact the companies to bid on it and everything, and they oversee that whole project. I'm sure they get a portion of it, so.
We can also put those bids out ourselves.
Yeah, we
but
can also
would
do it
have a
ourselves.
competitive bidding
We always have
process.
competitive bid anything, because we have to with municipality, anything over. $5,000.
okay, anything else?
So I think my question was answered, but I just want to make sure, because my question, this isn't in our capital improvements plan right now.
Correct,
Right?
that's gonna be
But we
going
do
forward, it
have,
will be.
we do have things from Public Works already in the capital improvements plan. And so we have a limited pot of money, and so I
Correct.
guess we're gonna come back at some point.
Yes.
And talk about how this impacts what's already
And,
there.
and what we've done in Public Works, when we've needed money from capital, is we've delayed equipment purchases, we push them out a couple of years. And that's what we may have to deal with.
So this is really
Through.
basically step one in a process of
Correct.
sorting through how we're gonna deal with the next 5 years.
Because we had to start somewhere.
Yeah, and no, it's a great
Yeah.
start, and I'm very appreciative of it.
I think our seal says, let us be judged by our works, and Todd, you definitely have your work cut out for you.
Yes.
So I appreciate you taking this on and the hard work that you've already accomplished and letting us know the deficiencies that we have, so.
So you're telling Todd, prepare to be judged?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, thank you very much. We're
Thanks,
on to the
Todd.
rescue fire tool presentation.
You want me to move up here so people can hear? You warmed up the chair for me.
Yeah.
Nice.
You- I
It's the hot
think,
seat now,
I
right?
think you have the next 2 or 3.
Yes, he does.
So Tom, go for it.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, the job.
Yeah. So the hydraulic rescue tools, AKA the jaws of life. Our current tools. Let's see. Oh, okay. So the FY '21 budget contains funds for the replacement of our hydraulic rescue tools. They were purchased in 1999 and 2009. Since that time, technology in the rescue tool business has reacted to the changes in technology in the automotive business. Vehicles are not built the same way they were in 1999. New vehicles contain a lot of what they call ultra-high strength steel. Boron being one of the major components of that. And when we cut metal, we think of cutting like a scissors. With this new ultra-high strength steel, we actually break it. It's that hard. We don't cut it, it actually breaks. And you can see while we're looking at this slide, the current tools we have a power unit, a hydraulic power unit, which is then connected through a hose to whichever tool you decide you want to use. So we went to decide which direction we want to go with our hydraulic power or our hydraulic rescue tools. And we did some testing and evaluation that was put off a bit because of COVID, but we had tools from 4 different manufacturers come in, and they were here to demo their tools and let our firefighters put their hands on them. And we had vehicles from Terry's Towing that were donated, including a Volvo, which is a modern vehicle that has the highest safety rating of everything. So it really was a good test of the capabilities of the tools.
I don't know, is this video going to work? Okay, so the quality of the video is not that great because it was made with an iPhone. But what is important is the audio of
Should have
it.
used Android.
And it's a city's phone. The audio of it, you can hear that high strength, ultra high strength steel actually breaking. And when it does cut, you can see the amount of tension that's in it and when that is completely cut in the way it's released. Where am I going? Tell options. Okay. It's like this. So if you listen. If you saw at the end, it's small, but you can actually see that amount of tension that's released. And that's because of that steel. And we're actually, like I said, fracturing it instead of, in the past, we would cut it like you would with a scissors. Okay, let's see. So we went through that. So the tools we were looking at are the hydraulic spreader, which is the actual jaws of life. And if you notice, they are battery operated. There are no hoses to tether you to that power unit. The hoses are 30 feet long, so that limits you in range, or either that or you have to move everything. So all these tools are independently powered by batteries. With this particular manufacturer, we get about 40 minutes of continuous runtime, which is pretty impressive considering what the tools are doing. And this will spread up to 32 inches. It has a force of 134,905 pound-feet, which a pound-foot is the amount of force that gravity has upon a 1 pound ingot.
All right.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, but I know that's a big number.
That's a lot.
And more is better, and these tools get the job done that we need them to do. Okay. So this is the hydraulic cutter. You saw that in the demo, and we can cut that high strength steel as necessary. And this is a telescoping ram for spreading, and it goes up to 53 inches as opposed to the 32 with this, the rescue spreader. So the FY21 capital budget contained $75,000. We had a highly competitive bidding process, which worked very well. And we were able to buy the 2 complete sets of Hurst hydraulic rescue tools and the associated equipment for $64,547.05.
Well done.
So we had a budget savings, if you will, of over $10,000. And that $75,000 wasn't the number I just pulled out of the air. That was after soliciting information from the manufacturers. So the bidding process really worked and helped drive that down.
Well done.
So, you know, just it's the recommendation of myself, the rescue tool committee, and the fire department that we make the purchase of the Hurst hydraulic system from Sentinel Emergency Solutions.
How often do we use these?
That varies.
In the past year, past 2 years, I know past year is probably a little bit, but prior to that, how often were they used on a yearly basis?
I probably say we get them out a dozen times a year.
Have we looked into, I mean, because obviously we're using these on average once a month. Have we looked into collaborating with, I don't know, Rock Hill, Shrewsbury to use these tools or to purchase these tools together?
You mean like one set of tools for each department or group purchasing or?
Well, I understand group purchasing, which we're only purchasing one, but within the idea that we're only using these once a month on average. And my guess is Shrewsbury and Rock Hill would be a little bit less than that, just based off of population and land area and roads. It seems like this would be a great way to collaborate with our neighbors.
It could be, but the urgency at these vehicle accidents, I mean, these are the most horrific accidents with most horrific injuries that, time is of the essence. I don't know if you remember the accident that was at Big Bend and Laclede. That was a quite detailed, and that person was bleeding out. I mean, that was quite urgent that they were extricated from that vehicle and, rushed to the emergency room and then to surgery, actually.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, Chief, I really do. I mean, that's a perfect example, though, for what I'm saying. Shrewsbury's fire department is literally 6 blocks down the road
Correct.
to the
They were
right.
there with their rescue tools at the same time.
Yeah, so, I mean, this just
So
seems
it's-
like a perfect opportunity to begin that collaboration or that agreement between our fire departments, especially as we see right now in the county a drive to consolidate our municipal fire departments.
I don't think that's going to detract from having what we call rescue pumpers, where you have that at least that initial equipment on all of the vehicles. Like that particular accident, Shrewsbury's rescue tools were in use of that, and both of ours were, just because typically you don't have one vehicle. You have multiple vehicles and you use multiple tools.
What happens to the old equipment?
So we are able to trade it in for a whopping $500 a set.
Why would we not keep it?
Maintenance. It's, it's at that point in its life where maintenance is really high, and we have to order parts from Germany on occasion. So one time we were down for like 3 months just waiting on parts.
Okay, we need to move on.
So what did we
and
do for those 3 months?
We have 2 sets now,
Okay.
and that's the redundancy of having the 2 sets.
All right. So you're requesting that we purchase 2 full new sets and
Correct.
retire the 2 current sets.
That is correct.
And based off of that, since we're purchasing them together, won't they be on the same timeline for repurchase or for repair? Like in other words, like if you purchase it in 1999, 2009, so you got a 10-year change here, that we're purchasing 2 new things at the exact same time, which will require planning for purchasing 2 new things within a 10, 20-year basis, right?
Correct. Any
All right.
questions?
I'm pushing us along
Okay.
a little bit so that you go to the EMS fee increases.
Just click the tab up at the top. Good. Oh. Oh, I see where you're at. Okay, you're back. Okay, so this letter was all in the packet, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes.
Scroll down to, and then there's a copy of the ordinance that gives the authority, Dr. Peoples, the authority to make the rate changes for EMS services. That is dated information. So this is a continuation or a result of the discussion that was started at the FY22 budget work session on our EMS rates. So our current fee structure was last changed in 2014. January of 2020, I talked to Joanne Jadali about increasing the fees. At that time, she indicated she had talked to council and there was no interest at that time. With the FY22 budget, I think it's imperative that we increase the fees. We're not doing anything that is out of line with what our neighbors are doing. And quite frankly, I don't think you should get a discount just because you're in Webster Groves and have an emergency, as opposed to if you were in Brentwood or anywhere else. Our current fees for the advanced life support, and let me just explain really quickly. Advanced life support would be it's the degree of injury. So let's start at the bottom. Basic life support would be sprained ankles, somebody that's taken from a motor vehicle accident that does not have significant injuries. Maybe they have a shoulder that's sore or something for evaluation. Doesn't require the highest level of skill or equipment. Advanced life support is a higher level, and then advanced life support is critical care, and that requires the most invasive procedures and highest level of skill and training. With private EMS, they have different types of ambulances like Medic One and Abbott. If you call and you say I have a sprained ankle, they are gonna send a basic life support ambulance. It's stocked with bandages and splints, okay, and it's staffed by EMTs, which is a lesser trained than our paramedics. Okay? We only have one ambulance, and it is licensed as a mobile intensive care unit, and you get 2 paramedics no matter what your level of injury is. So as we go through and we look at our billing structure, okay, the basic life support cost is significantly less than an advanced life support cost. Even though you are still getting 2 paramedics, an advanced life support unit, and it's not available to other people at that time. Our medications and interventions are all a la carte. There's a chart. You don't get to pick like at a restaurant. However, you are billed by what you are using. And of course, mileage, we bill for transport miles, so what we call loaded miles. So from the incident scene to the hospital.
Can I ask a question really quick? 2 things. One, I'm a little, my mind's a little foggy on the request coming to council. Was that us as council members for the increase in rate, or was that prior councils? Because I remember.
Yeah, I don't either.
I
When we were at the budget work session,
No, like when Joanne approached council.
so I don't know, I wasn't part of that discussion. I don't know if that was, if she just had that discussion with people individually.
No, none of us
It
remember
was
that.
just-
The only thing I remember is the collection.
Collections,
fees,
yeah.
but
Right.
Not the fee, the rate structure
Rate
itself.
structure,
Okay.
never.
So, and
That's
that's
what I
fine. I
was
just
thinking.
wanted to make sure that, because I just wanted to make sure for my own perspective that we hadn't shut this down. Like, people on this council haven't shut this down in
It
the past.
definitely was not in this format.
All right.
Okay, it was, I went to Joanne, she came back a few weeks later and brought it to me that there was no interest in collecting fees. I don't know where she got that information from.
So on a collection side of it, do Medicare and Medicaid, do they cover the full cost of what?
I will get to
coming up
that,
to
I
that.
will get to that.
Keep going.
And as far as collections go, we are very fortunate. We collect over 77%, which is very high in the EMS industry. Usually it's the low 60s. That, the proposed changes, I would say that we go to an advanced life support call of $1,000, critical care because we use more supplies of $1,200, and a basic life support of $1,000. It's kind of like going to the mechanic, whether he's repacking your wheel bearings or rebuilding your transmission, the hourly rate's the same. And if you have a broken leg that requires a BLS ambulance, we don't have the option of sending you a BLS ambulance with 2 lesser staff personnel. You're gonna get a mobile intensive care unit with 2 fully trained paramedics. And during that period of time, it's not available for somebody else. So I would propose that we make that $1,000, adding a treat and transport of $200. So if we show up and the classic case is diabetic emergencies, we treat you, they wake up, they feel better. They're like, we know we've been through this before. We don't want to go to the hospital. This will give us some mechanism to recoup some of that.
We need to do that.
Including all the medications and interventions into a bundled fee that's listed above, instead of this a la carte billing. It gets to be problematic. People call me, they didn't do that to me. They didn't do that. I didn't get that medication. And, at times there are billing errors because it's derived out of the narrative of the report. And it's just a lot cleaner way of handling it. And then increasing our mileage to $12 per loaded mile or transport mile.
Tom, can I ask you about if somebody calls, there's no transport, but there's not even a treat, because you guys get called sometimes, somebody has fallen, and I know what the calls are. We're still going to charge them $200.
We do not. So this is only if we treat them and don't transport them.
So if you get repeated calls from someone just because they have slipped off a chair, we're still not going to.
That is correct. We're not going to transport
Okay.
them. We hopefully, if it's a repeated calls like that, we can get them some assistance in other ways.
Yes, okay, thank you.
But this would be
have a
only
lot
if
of
we
those.
provide an intervention
Okay,
and then they decide they don't want to go to the hospital.
thank you.
Good intent calls, the neighbor calls because somebody's, fell down in their yard. We go over, we help them up, they're not injured. We're not gonna charge for that. Area comparisons. Clayton is charging $900 for a BLS call. ALS emergency is gonna be $950 and $1,200 for the ALS2. Mileage is the same. I put this Afton billing chart in there because that's page 1 of 3 of their a la carte billing. It gets crazy. Okay, we gave the same drug 3 times. And Kirkwood is very similar. They do have a disposable supplies fee, which is bandages, I would assume. And they include that on every bill they transport. So why that's not included just in their basic fee, I don't understand. So where's the impact? Okay. So this is an ALS emergency call. We went through, these were the interventions we provided. The total was $935. On the new fee schedule, these are all included in that bundle billing, and we have a net increase of $125 for that particular call. On a BLS call is where you're going to see the most increase.
I'm sorry, the BLS was the
Basic life support.
Okay.
This is where you're going to see the most increase. It would be from a $636 call to a $1,048 call. It's a $412 increase.
And somebody who's on Medicare would end up paying 200 and some odd.
Well, yes, I have that slide.
Okay.
Okay.
That's coming.
So the big question is, who is paying the bills? Okay, who is this going to impact the most? Okay, Medicare and Medicaid are our biggest players of third. And we'll get to their bill, and I think we might slid over that slide, but our self-pay is very low. It's like 10%. So that's self-pay, like out-of-pocket, self-insured type of fee.
Can you break that? Would it be possible, Chief, to break that down between basic life support and the other form, the ALS?
36% of our calls are basic life support calls.
So I guess what I'm in a non-basic life support where it's the ALS, is that what it is the payer different? Is it significantly different? Do you know?
I wouldn't know, but I wouldn't think so. I would think that would be pretty even across the board. I mean, our demographic, if we only have 10% that are self-pay, I wouldn't see where there would be a disparity between whether it's ALS or a BLS call.
And the reason I ask is because I think I would rather see the cost shift greater to the ALS rather than the BLS. Like, in other words, rather it being a $125 increase for the ALS, I'd rather see a $412 increase for the ALS versus $125 for the BLS. Because in my mind, the services that we're providing as a fire department is for those basic life services. And it's more of it goes more towards the dogma, or what word am I looking for? Like the institution of what we're supposed to be providing. Does that make sense?
I guess from my viewpoint is you're still getting the ALS equipment, you're getting the ALS trained personnel.
Yeah. We
don't have the option to send you an ALS unit. We have one ambulance and we pay, it's what $375,000 was put in the budget for a new ambulance. I mean, that equipment is there whether anybody is using it or not. And when we go on a BLS call, it goes with us along with the personnel to operate it. Like I said, if you call Abbott, they're going to send you a BLS unit at a lesser rate, but you're going to get lesser trained personnel as well.
Yeah. But theoretically, you need lesser trained personnel.
That is true. But we don't have the option.
Yeah.
Going down, let me back up. I might have slid right over that slide.
Yeah, there was sort of a footnote about what Medicare. There you go.
There it is.
Oh, right here. Okay, yes. So this is what Medicare and Medicaid, these are their allowable charges. So it doesn't matter what we bill them, and this is for that close to 1/3 of our calls. They're only gonna allow us to bill, for a advanced life support emergency call, they're gonna allow us to bill $442.90. The insurance pays 80%. The individual is responsible for 20%.
But 80% of the 442.90.
Right, that's
Correct.
my question.
Right, it's not 80% of what we
Not of
bill. It doesn't
1,000,
matter.
right.
That gets taken off as non-allowable charges. Right.
So fundamentally, if I'm on Medicare, this won't impact me because of what Medicare sets as a rate.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, and that's 1/3 of it.
I just
Yeah,
signed that.
okay.
And typically, those are more severe calls just because of the demographic involved. Do we have any other questions?
I have one question.
Yes.
So what type of schedule should this review be on? 2 years, every 3 years, every year?
Personally, I believe, and I told Chief Bader, our medical officer, that I want it reviewed, I think it should be reviewed annually and probably adjusted biannually.
Let me tell you about the
It
gap.
should not be this long.
I agree.
Do we have, what's our ambulance traffic in COVID compared to outside of COVID?
So, yes, we are down. Our EMS calls are down since COVID, because at the beginning of COVID and as things were ramping up, people were told, don't go to the hospital. Okay, you don't want to go to the hospital if you have COVID because you don't want to spread to everybody else. And you don't want to go to the hospital if you don't have COVID because you might get it.
And Chief, that's true for the entire region, right? St.
That's
Charles
correct,
County,
yeah,
St. Louis County,
that's-
everybody's way low.
Yes.
And the reason I ask is I also don't want us to, it's a health emergency. We still have one. It's not finished. And raising our rates during a health emergency seems a little bit, I understand that. And if this is not leading to greater traffic, then that makes a difference in my analysis. I also think, as we go on to think about American Rescue Plan, are there places for lower income folks that some of the difference could be paid out of some of those funds? I guess I'll just put that out there for future thought.
Sure. And I think that's one of the reasons that we had some discussions about going to collections. And our collection rate is very good compared to the national average. So, that's the people who aren't paying aren't going to pay unless they want to buy a house or something else, some other reason. The other thing I will leave with you, I just read a study this morning from the city of San Jose. We did a national study that the average actual cost of an EMS call is over $2,500. So that's the expense that the city would incur. Now, people pay taxes for those services, I get that, but that's what the real cost is for that time period.
I'm gonna suggest that if we can move on to the Firehouse #2 update. We have a
Sure.
Community Days Awards, and so we have a full house over here that we don't really want to leave sitting for very long. Thank you, Tom, very much.
Nice job, Chief.
Chief, good job, Chief. And then I'm gonna suggest that for the TIF Commission one, we come back at the very end after we're done with everything and we bring that back and have that discussion at that point. After our closed session, we can bring it back up.
So Mayor, if I may introduce.
Yes, please.
This is Matt Nye and Jen Kissinger from Navigate. They are our owner's representatives on the House 2 project. And we probably know each other better than we ever thought we would, because we talk on the phone daily, if not all of us, about, hey, what do you want to do about this? They think about all the things that I never would have thought of. And Jen's kind of the enforcer. When we need immediate action, I call Jen and she gets things done.
All right, thank you all for having us. I'll make this quick, I know you're getting to another meeting, so we wanted to just give everybody an update on how the Firehouse project's going, as we've been in construction now since January of this year, so looking towards getting these phases kicked off so that the department can get into a new, better building. So
Real quick, just speaking of the phases, so if you're looking at the building on this rendering here, you know, the phase one is this bunkhouse room, which is that southern part of the building, and then the apparatus bay will be phase two. So we'll move all the firemen into the phase one. They'll utilize the canopy for their apparatus temporarily, and then we'll start on phase two, and that's what we'll finish out the process. So, into some of the updates here. So phase one site work. What you see in the left picture is retaining wall. This picture was taken about middle last week. They've actually they're putting in the filter fabric and the rock and all the drainage for this retention pond, which sits on the bottom of that retaining wall. So that work is getting done right now. So it's even updated since then. But the retaining wall is in. All they have to do is connect a little bit more of that retaining wall after they're done with that retention pond. The next photo on the right is the entrance off of Rose Avenue. What's not there, which caused us a little bit of a hiccup for a while, was the power pole was sitting right in the middle of our new drive lane. And it took Ameren mixed with Charter and AT&T a couple months just to get that pole down and all the services relocated. So we finally got past that so they can continue with the concrete work and get that entrance right. So,
do you mind reminding where the retention wall and pond, where that actually sits on the?
So there's Avenue A, which used to be basically running north to south right here. And this is back in the far back part of the property.
Okay.
So it's like the end of Avenue, where Avenue 8 dead ends now.
Right.
That's where that retaining
Okay.
wall is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So your neighbor's properties are, on either side of that. For exterior wise, the mason got started. This is on the south elevation. As you can see, they're actually up quite a ways. This is what the brickwork actually looks like in the pattern. As of today, they're almost done with that elevation. Their goal was to be done by the end of today, so we'll see if that actually happens. But that's what the permanent brickwork will look like on that side. And there's some other limestone mixed in. On the east elevation, this is on the left. The photo on the left is the canopy that'll be kind of the temporary house for the apparatus for phase one, and then it'll just become a parking area for the permanent building itself. The west elevation is the photo on the right. This is the new entrance. You'll see that the building is blue. That's the air barrier, just a waterproof membrane that still allows the building to breathe. It's just a fluid applied product. So that's why you might see it blue for a little bit longer until all the cladding is on the wall. And then also to point out, the roof has started. It's actually watertight or dried in. It has an insulation and another vapor barrier, ice and water shield right now. And then the permanent roof will be a metal roof.
It's a 50-year metal roof that Todd won't have to deal with.
All right, so going inside, the left photo here is the main corridor. So bunk rooms are on the left. The showers, bathrooms are on the right. You can see we have drywall going in. There's insulation in the walls. All the overhead rough in for ductwork, plumbing, electrical, all that is in the ceilings and in the walls. So they're closing up walls, having inspections, for that. Start taping some of the areas up. The photo on the right is where the temporary kitchen will be, and that'll be the permanent fitness room once it's all said and done. But that's the largest space right now in that phase one. So we're wrapping that up, closing up walls, and we'll be building out hanging doors before you know it, and hanging windows on the outside. So this next slide shows us both the IT closet, which is the photo on the left, and the electrical room on the right. So the IT, both these rooms are definitely critical to get complete. The IT room, we've had meetings just for all the different components and all the different players that have something to go into those rooms with the city and Charter, AT&T, and all the vendors. So not a big room, but it has enough space in there for all the different components. So they're wrapping that up. Having that behind us.
Man, how's that room ventilated?
So there's on the IT room, there's a louver in the door, and then there's a individual, they call it like a split system HVAC unit that puts,
Keeps that cool.
air cool. Same with the electrical room. Yeah, they will heat up with the.
Got it. Good.
All right, so this last slide just kind of gives us a schedule overview, what we're looking at as far as turnover for each of the different phases. So phase one, substantial completion, we're looking at September 3rd with an owner moved in around the September 10th timeframe. I've listed out just some potential schedule risks to those dates, weather obviously we can't control too much of. But the two other ones are the utilities coming into the project. They're permanent power for Ameren. They actually went through a little bit of redesign when we thought they were coming out to actually set the new pole. They decided they weren't going to be able to set a transformer on the pole. They were going to bring it down and make it a pad mounted transformer, which basically means it's on the ground. So we had to figure out, well, where's the best place to put that so that there's not one sitting out in the middle of Elm Avenue there. So there's been quite a bit of work. But
Might slow down traffic.
We have finally, agreed upon through the design team and Ameren where that's going. The underground rough in and the underground conduits to that pole we're actually going to be starting in the next few days, so that we have the permanent location. So just wanted to point out, I mean, there is a little bit of risk there, but we're working through those daily.
Is that to help keep like trees from taking the power out, or is that like putting it down?
Of why they did that, so I can't speak too much to it other than the phasing of the power coming in.
Okay.
The building. They needed to have an increase, and the only way to do that is to actually have a pad mounted transformer because of the size of the poles weren't adequate enough to support a pole mounted transformer. They needed to have like a 60-foot pole instead of the 40 that's out there.
Oh.
So, yeah, we're taking all the power underground. The transformer tucked away in the back. And then the other component is the Missouri American Water. And that's the connection to the water main. So we have the water main. Missouri American hires a contractor to do the connection to our project. They'll be getting that started here.
We issued the permit today.
Yeah, good.
That was a huge hurdle.
Yeah.
So that is on your consent agenda tonight, so if you have questions about it, this is probably the best person to ask over here, but that has been a huge dilemma and a costly.
Very costly, more than what we were anticipating. But you kind of have to beg mercy and turn back and some of that.
Only if we let ourselves be. We're going to talk about that.
So bringing us over to phase two and what we anticipate there. So after phase one, we'll start that project and the demo somewhere in that first week of September with a substantial completion by the end of this year. Wow. Depending on how some of these other scheduled items work themselves out.
And Matt, do we look like we're on schedule to get our apparatus under cover again by the time it gets cold?
Yes, that's been a big part of the discussion is, we have the temporary apparatus, we have temporary food for it.
Right.
But then obviously moving into a new apparatus. Still maintaining to the temporary one. That's been a big concern of chiefs, obviously. We have provisions in place for that.
Good. Neil, to your point really quick, our contractors stepped up and they have 2 mobile heating units, forced air heating units that they will be able to put in there as opposed into that structure on the back to keep them at a temperature above freezing as opposed to using radiant heat, which only heats from the top. So the forced air is going to be much better at keeping the pumps and everything underneath warm. Good.
Great. Does anyone have any other questions? Because if not, we can say thank you very, very much. This looks absolutely fabulous. I'm so excited for us
So quick too.
to get this done. And I mean, the whole process of thoughtfulness of moving things around and construction timetables has been great. All right, council, we will, after our closed session, we will come back. We'll have our closed session in here. Oh, gosh, yes. Could we right now, it sounds like we could certainly appoint Tammy to the Business Development Commission, yes?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
And since Karen made this plea for legal help, can we appoint Peter Ruger to the library board?
But then we need to do the other one as well, right? Because we have those interviews.
I don't know who the other 2, Megan Hayes and Anita Radcliffe, do we need to go back and relook at them? I think maybe we should. I mean, unless. Let's go back and do those, but let's get these other 2 on board for right now. Okay? Is that good? All right, good enough. Thank you. All right. I'm gonna pull this mask down long enough to welcome all of you here. We're glad to have so many of you here in person tonight. We also have people who are here digitally with us this evening, and we have screens here where I think you can see us and who is on this digitally. If residents want to speak during the public hearings or remarks, as visitors, they can use the raise hand option that is there via Zoom. And also we wanted to announce that due to the St. Louis County mask mandate, masks will be required by all regardless of vaccination status. And I am breaking the law by pulling this down so I can give you some directions. So this evening we welcome all of you, and if you're going to speak or remarks to visitors, we ask that you limit those comments to 3 minutes. And we'll begin tonight with the roll call.
Bigelow.
Here.
Councilmember Arnold.
Here.
Councilmember Bliss.
Here. Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Alexander.
Here.
Councilmember Bridges.
Here. All right, our first agenda item tonight is our Community Days Awards, which is always a wonderful annual event where we get to recognize and thank those of you who spent all that extra effort participating in the parade, which is so wonderful. It's a really wonderful gift that you give to the community by participating. And so Steve Clark is here this evening, the parade chair. He is the person who will be getting out these awards tonight. And so this is Mr. Clark, and Mr. Clark, go for it.
All right, thank you. My name is Steve Clark with the Parks and Recreation Department. I have a few thank yous first. First of all, we want to thank Webster University, the sponsor. 3 parade judges, Karen Johnson, Brian Munn, and John Fonzo is here tonight. Webster Next School Christ Church for letting us use the restroom, Webster Eden Holy Redeemer for the parking, Bucky and Michelle for escorting the city council, Lieutenant Colonel Sergeant Flannery, Police Department, Fire Department, Public Works, Katie and Jennifer, who always work. Also, Gene Sampson, who put the sign on the cars, the rec support staff, parks department, people who took time to put together the units for the parade, wonderful crowds at the parade, and especially the Webster Rose Masons, none of them are here tonight. We've been happy to have Masons, so thank you to them. And with that, I'll start getting out the awards.
Do you need more than one?
Okay, so our first award is for the Outstanding Children's Entry, and that goes to Cub Scout Pack 303 and 305.
You guys did such a great job. Thank you so much. There you go.
And the best children's entry, the Webster Groves High School Statesman Stars Dance Team.
Yeah, I guess not. Oh, come on.
Outstanding civic entry was Webster Gardens Lutheran Church, so I hope you share this. And the best civic entry is the Veterans of the Battle of Coach.
Thank you so much. I really so appreciate
Next award is the Outstanding Classic Entry, and that goes to the St. Louis Corvette Club. Michelle's here.
Actually, yeah, the picture just herself. With that mask and that. To get a picture with Karen Alexander, we went to high school together.
And the best classic entry goes to the Showing Corvette Club.
Next year. There you go. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna throw everybody.
Okay, the next two outstanding commercial entry is Southwest Auto Parts, who I believe is here, and the best commercial entry, J.B. Smith Funeral Home. Cell phone for celebration. All right. I love doing this every year. It's so much fun.
Thank you.
Outstanding performance entry goes to the McKinley Band Boosters. And the best performing entry went to the Steel Band. Okay, then we have outstanding visiting entry is Master King's Sun Martial Arts, who's not here. Best visiting entry was the Aquarium at Union Station, who are not here this evening. All right, the outstanding novelty entry, I know they're here, so then is the Helpenstein Lawn Chair Brigade.
Careful what you preach by half on.
And the best novelty entry was James Roofing. Then we had a couple special judges awards. One was to Second Rangers, 10th Armor, who are not here, and Tim Lambert, who drove the parade judges. So thank you, everyone, and thank you for coming.
And Steve Clark, thank you ever so much for doing this. Okay, I think we'll just move on to our first public hearing this evening. And it is the proposed community development block grant funds for the 2020 budget, 2022 budget. And Parks and Rec Director Scott Davis is here to talk about it. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This public hearing is to discuss the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, which is a national program administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I'd like to start by handing out a sign-in sheet, which I've already started back here. Everybody can fill this out. We need to submit this as part of our application process. We'll also take a screenshot of all the Zoom meeting attendees to submit that as well. CDBG seeks to meet one of three national objectives. That's to benefit low and moderate income persons, to prevent or eliminate slums or blights, or address community development needs of particular urgency because existing conditions pose a serious and immediate threat to the health or welfare of the community. HUD provides block grants to St. Louis County and disperses most of those funds to subrecipients to our municipalities and nonprofits. We've been receiving this grant from HUD through the county for many years. Tonight's the first hearing, first public hearing is, I'm sorry, thank you. Tonight's public hearing is the first step in the application process for the calendar year 2022. We are applying for and expect to receive the same funding as last year. We expect to be awarded $33,300. For the past several years, council has chosen to use all the CDBG funds in the home improvement program. This is a cornerstone program of the CDBG and provides 5-year forgivable home improvement loans to income qualified residents that live anywhere in the city limits of Webster. This portion of the program is administered through the St. Louis County Office of Community Development, and individuals apply directly to them. I contacted the county last week, and at the end of June, the previous funds have been, all the previous funds have been committed or used. There are 3 active cases currently working on completing projects that have already been approved, and there are 3 individuals on the wait list. County is expecting to receive 2021 funds this fall, so that should cover the waivers. It's staff's recommendation that calendar year 2022 funds of $18,300 also be directed to the home improvement program. The remaining $15,000 staff recommends using the entire department for improvements or renovations based on the community engagement survey data gathered over the next several weeks. I'm happy to answer any questions the council or the public may have.
Okay, let's see where we are. Does council have any questions or comments? Nothing. Is there anything from the public? Do we have any hands up on Zoom? Do we have anyone in the audience? Well, it seems as though we have no comments, so I guess we can just close this public hearing. We all can do that.
I do. Okay. So there's, I'll submit those. So, sorry. So the list is there's a map that St. Louis County has provided that shows the areas that are included, as well as the sign-in sheet to be submitted for the application.
The ordinances are city much first.
And they will get to it.
All right, with that, we have it all. The public hearing is closed, and thank you, Mr. Dennis. Appreciate your work. Sarah Richardson, Councilwoman Richardson, would you call resolution 2021-34, please? Okay, we're going to read the resolution at 2021-24. Second, 34. 34. Second on that too. Okay, Neil, you can read it.
Great.
We're waiting for Neil to read the resolution.
Resolution 2021-34, authorizing the city manager of the city of Webster, Missouri, to submit on behalf of the city of Webster, Missouri, an application to community development funds for calendar year 2022. The St. Louis County Office of Community Development, Department of Human Services, providing for specific programs to be undertaken within said city under the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. We get back in personally and lose my shit.
Okay, so if there are no comments or questions, we'll call for the vote.
Yes, Mayor.
Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Moss.
Yes. Okay, resolution 2021-34 has passed. We're now going to the second public hearing, which is a continued public hearing of zoning code text amendments for multiple family dwelling regulations. And Harry is going to, and because today I believe we have changes in the ordinance that were submitted, so I hope you're gonna.
I'm just going to go through them. So at the last council meeting, which was just about a month ago, staff had brought before the council, we made the full presentation of what went before planning commission. And then we had made one recommendation on height in regards to a few key locations. And at that time, we had some language, but there had been a couple questions about like where that would apply and what the implications would be. And we also had another set of language. We've been looking at 2 different types of language and trying to determine which would be the best to put in the code. So the code as written had a section that had been in there for decades that included describing that you could have a taller height based on the street frontage. So you go to that section in the back, people forget it was there. And it would say along Big Bend, or along Lockwood, you could be the extra house in stories. And so we looked at that as one way to write it. And we looked at it in another way where we wrote it, where it simply said, as long as you are not adjacent to single family residential. Not single family residential zoning, but a single family residential house. So we looked at those both ways, and we wanted to give you the opportunity to look at that in both needs. So, sorry. So the first one was using the language which was in the code. So the items in red were what we had already discussed with the planning commission. And then there's some text in blue, which is what I presented at the last meeting, which basically said you could go to 4 stories if you weren't sharing on a common boundary with single family developments. So we had it in both the C district as well as had it in the D district. So in both cases, it would mean that you could go up to 4 stories as long as you weren't adjacent to residential. And what I did was I then went and we colored a map so that you could see exactly which lots that were already zoned C or D would be able to go up to the 4 stories. And then I did another map so you can see more clear. So the map in the upper left-hand corner are areas of Old Webster that are currently zoned D commercial that would potentially be allowed to go to that 4th story. Again, most of them are existing structures. Very likely not going to necessarily come down, but there are some empty parking lots, and there's some areas that could be developed. The next one in the upper right-hand corner is Old Orchard. Same sort of thing. A lot of those lots, if they were not adjacent to residential, were adjacent to the highway or adjacent to 44. Then there's in the bottom left-hand corner is Crossroads. Again, just a couple tiny lots that are so small they probably wouldn't even be able to build anything on them, much less a 4-story and still get any parking in. But there is one larger lot that's still zone D at the intersection of Elm and Big Bend. The next one over on the bottom row in the middle is a couple things along what is the section of Kirkham that changes to Brentwood. And then the farthest in the bottom right corner is along Watson. So sort of that area along Watson Road, Walk Rates, and a few of those things are. So using the language that simply says if you're not adjacent to your single family residential gives you these, the implication of these, which is a number of lots mainly facing highway, facing 44, and facing some of our larger arterial streets. Then we looked at it if we did it instead using the language of the words. So buildings facing south of Orchard Avenue, the east side of Big Bend, between certain streets. So matching what it's been in the code for quite a number of years. Same thing with Old Webster, identifying a particular side of a couple streets, Moody and Lockwood. And what that does is it really does limit quite a bit what could be done. So we highlighted the map in green, and then here are the 3 areas. So a lot of the areas do overlap between the 2, but as you can see, there's a lot less that could be built to the 4 stories. Staff is fine with either either set of language. I think it just comes down to how much more areas we think have that ability to be able to be developed for the 4th story.
Would you mind showing us the other map again, just for comparative purposes?
Yeah,
thank you.
So those are the blue areas. Gives a little bit more on Watson. You have a roadway right there, but if we hadn't had it in the code before with Watson. Big Bend gives you a little bit more flexibility in some of the properties that face the railroad. And Old Webster, it gives you a little bit more, and then it also, in this case, separates you to make sure that you don't get to go up against single family residential. And I'm happy to go back to the other document.
Is this different from what was presented at the last?
No, this is the same. We just mapped it for you. So this is the at the last meeting. Sorry, this is the language we presented at the last meeting, and then which is the blue, adding 4 stories. Yes. Yeah. Adding the 4 stories was, and we talked about it just being that it was 4 stories and not adjacent to single-family residential lots. So that it would give the opportunity, if you go to 4 stories adjacent to the railroad tracks, adjacent to 44, adjacent to major roadways that have other commercial around it. So that's what we presented at the last meeting. But we didn't have a map ready for you at that time, so we thought it'd be more important to show you the map. Is it showing now? Yeah, awesome. There we go.
Councilmember Bush, can you see it?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
So the blue map, is the one that was the language we presented last month. But we had looked at the possibility of changing the language to be a little bit more specific by streets. And it really does limit a lot what could be done in terms of properties that could be developed up to 4 stories. They both, in this case, it still allows some areas in Old Webster and some areas in Old Orchard, primarily on the south side of Big Bend. When you do it with the language that allows the 4 stories, just making sure you're not adjacent to residential. There's a few more properties that get added that could offer a couple more opportunities.
Mark, do you see any advantage at all to the green?
The blue gives a little bit more flexibility for a few more properties that could have some opportunity to be developed, and it would again keep the focus on some of the key properties that are already zoned commercial. It keeps people from coming in and rezoning to PC and then opening up the whole gamut of additional height. And I think we've gotten a lot of positive feedback in between last meeting and this meeting from different developers talking to us about what the code is changing to, and that it would give them some opportunities to not have to go through the time of the rezoning and still be able to build something. What are you looking for? So we would want to potentially close the public hearing. The language would be either, so the entire code section was a pretty minor code change. So we initially brought forward to you a exhibit A for the ordinance that specifically had the red line text. What we would probably want to do is be able to determine, do you want the red line with the blue, or would you like the red line with the green?
Help me again to understand the difference between the blue and the green.
So the blue says you can go to 4 stories as long as you don't have a common boundary with a single family residential home. Okay. So very specific. If there's a house next to you, you can't go to 4 stories. In the other one, it just talks about, well, if you're adjacent to facing Lockwood, if you're facing Moody, if you're facing Big Bend, it just gives a street of which one you're facing, which is how the old code used to be written.
Hey, Mara.
Yes.
Why do you not have, just in the language, because I can see it on the map, why do you not mention Frisco in the area of that part of Old Orchard?
So because most of the lots go completely through from one end to the other, both of the code sections allow it. So the area of Frisco, the lots go from Big Bend to Frisco. So
Yeah.
if you do this listing saying look for 4 stories adjacent to Big Bend, you can allow it. If you say that you're not next to residential, there are no residential homes adjacent to Frisco. So in both cases, it's already covered, and we didn't have to list Frisco because it's really an alley.
Could they potentially, though, have front entries on Frisco?
So we would probably want to look at the code section because Frisco is considered more of an alleyway versus a primary roadway. And then we also have the code section that says if you have 2 frontages, The architecture review board will determine which is the primary frontage and which is the secondary, and you can have garages off of the secondary frontage. So the code section would allow them to have entrances off of Frisco.
But not technically the front entrance.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
actually, you don't want it out of the front, so it would allow them to have it off of the rear. Even though there's two entrances.
Okay.
Okay. Council comments. You have a recommendation, Mark.
I think after mapping it a couple of different times with Danny and I'm talking, I think we actually prefer the one that says not next to single family residential. I think it's just a little bit cleaner, and it doesn't get people confused. There's a lot of confusion when we say Big Bend from Gray all the way to Woodley Station Road.
Yes.
This is much cleaner.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So, would council agree with Mara's recommendation that we just covered? Yes, okay, so now what does that, I guess now we'll deal with that when we get to the ordinance, right?
Yes, and if there's any other questions, the rest of the slides are available. If anyone had any questions about the code section, but I didn't think you needed to see any of them again.
No, thank you very much. All right, so are there any comments from the public? Any hands up or any other comments from the public? I see nothing. Is there anything from the audience? If not, and council has nothing more to say?
I would suggest you close the meeting, but before we do that, I would ask you to bid following the long list of exhibits. Plan Commission staff report written by Danny and do stuff prior to the meeting, April 5 of 2021, with the following attachments: existing selected definitions in section 53020, existing section 5.110 zoning code. Certain regulations that are highlighted and attached therein, existing section 53.130 of Webster zoning code, regulations which are highlighted within that section, existing section 53.140 of Webster zoning code, the regulations which are highlighted within that. In addition, Planning Commission staff report by Danny Jadusa, planner for meeting date May 3rd, 2021, and the following attachments. Selected definitions in section 53.020, section 53.110, section 53 of the zoning code, with proposed text amendments redlining, section 53.130, subsection, section C1 of the regulations of the city of Webster Groves, chapter 53 of the zoning code, with proposed text amendments redlining, section 53.140, section D, commercial districts, or the section 53 zoning code, those text amendments are redlined. Section 53.159, use statement for commercial, industrial, and planned district, city of Webster Groves, chapter 53 zoning code, proposed text amendments are redlined. Section 53.203, the additional attached garage regulations for the city of Webster Groves, chapter 53 of the zoning code, proposed text amendments are redlined. Section 53.205, additional minimum street setbacks, city of Webster Groves, chapter 53 of the zoning code, proposed text amendments are redlined. In addition, Planning Commission staff report by Danny Jadusa, the meeting of June 7th, 2021, with the following attachments. Selected definitions in section 53.020, section 53.110, commercial district, excuse me, C commercial district regulations, chapter 53 of the zoning code, section 53.130, chapter 3 of the zoning code, proposed text amendments are redlined. Section 53.140, section 53 of the zoning code, proposed text amendments are redlined. Section 53.159, use table for commercial, industrial, and planned districts in Webster Groves, chapter 53 zoning code, proposed text amendments are redlined. Section 53.203, additional attached garage regulations, city of Webster Groves,
chapter 53 of the zoning code. Section 53.205, additional minimum street setbacks in the Webster Road, chapter 53 of the zoning code. Proposed action by Mr. Brown. Copy of the PowerPoint slides from May 3rd, 2021, and received by commission meeting. In addition, the minutes of the April 5th, 2021 meeting, May 3rd, 2021 meeting, and the June 7th, 2021 commission meeting. July 6th, 2021, the wet line draft code amendments. Director of Planning and Development's PowerPoint with the City Council on July 6th, 2021. The zoning code of the City of Webster Groves, an email from Dave Hvac dated July 5th, 2021, all of which are listed in the attachment included in this project.
All right, so we have everything. Thank you. And the hearing is closed. And Emerson, Councilmember Smith, could you call the line?
Yes, Mayor, I call for the first and second reading of bill number 9154.
Sorry. Okay, Mr. Brown.
Sure.
No, it's okay. We're getting you back here.
Yeah, getting to it. Bill 9154, first reading, an ordinance amending chapter 53 of the zoning code of Webster Groves by amending the use of dimensional regulations for multiple family dwellings in the C, C1 and B commercial districts in section 53.110 and 53.143 and section 53.1.59 and amending the attached garage regulations in section 53.203 and additional minimum street setbacks in section 53.205 and that is what it is.
Okay, now here is where we have to make whatever it is that we need to do with this in order to get ours. Can you help us out?
So you would request that the exhibit A be the one with both red line and blue amendments.
I move that we make exhibit A with both red line and blue exhibits, our ordinance, is correct.
Second.
Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander. Councilmember Richardson.
Yes.
Mayor Welch.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaughn.
Yes.
All right. So now that has been amended, we can do the second reading as amended.
Second reading as amended, an ordinance amending chapter 53 of the zoning code of Webster Groves by amending the use of dimensional regulations for multiple family dwellings in the C, C1 and D commercial districts in sections 53.110 through 53.143 and section 53.159 and amending the attached garage regulations in sections 53.203 and additional minimum street setbacks in section 53.205 and matters related thereto.
All right, I think we did it. We'll move on to remarks and visitors, and we welcome Mr. Dave Hvac back.
I have a little trouble with my eyes, so I'm going to hold this up close. But I zoomed in this morning to the Arts Commission meeting, Gary, and I thought it was great. And I wrote this after the meeting. First of all, I don't know who or what group came up with the slogan, City of the Arts, but I want to kiss them, I want to hug them, because I think it's maybe the best and smartest thing and decision the city has done maybe ever, for what it stands for in the future. Why? Because I've lived here 20 years, and through all of the countless controversies and divisions that we have endured, have been win-lose battles that pit neighbor against neighbor too often, splitting us apart and bringing out the worst in us too often. And Gary, you know that I've done that. That happened to you and I, or I did it to you back in 2001, the Mills Project, my worst day. We give ourselves over to the dark side, and we need to restore balance in our galaxy. And the arts is the force to do it, because the arts are all about love, beauty, hope, fun, and creativity. The arts touch us, inspire us, lift our spirits up, and bring us together to share and enjoy a common experience. In short, art is community. And do you have any idea just how much artistic talent you have in your city? It is phenomenal. They are extraordinary, and they make our city come alive. And they are everywhere. Was anybody here at the Art Commission's Baroque concert in Larson Park in the middle of July? 300 or 400 people together enjoying a nice evening, enjoying each other, enjoying wonderful music. Now, how does that compare with arguing about some stupid ordinance? Or, you know, it doesn't. And look what's coming ahead. I mean, think of this. In light of this controversy, vote and stuff, you know, Webster Arts Chalk Fest this August 7th. The Arts Commission Piano Fest on August 28th. Webster's 3rd World Peace Concert on September 4th at the Garden Cafe. The 20th Annual Jazz and Blues Festival on September 18th. And Webster's 2nd Annual Porch Fest on October 3rd this year in the North Webster neighborhood. That's a lot of fest, a lot of festive occasions. The arts are the answer, and they always will be to me. So I will end by saying that if I was the person in charge, I would, last sentence, I would compliment Douglas Hill project with another project, which is transforming the historic Ozark Theater into a Webster Performing Arts Center and make our dreams come true. So, thank you.
All right, and then continue on with the other hand up. Oh, we do Mr. Hand up? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to talk. And then, Mr. Roselli, you have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. Hey, good evening. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your commitment to the city. While I don't agree with all of you all of the time, I have a deep respect for each of you. Often I wonder if those that only pay attention occasionally understand all that you give to serve us. By the time these remarks are read, all the votes for Proposition 1 have been cast, and some of the results are trickling in. I believe all of you know where I stand on the issue. As one who believes most change occurs incrementally, I applaud the council's decision to pass Ordinance 9145. Over the last 2 months or so, I've talked with dozens and dozens of Websterites on both sides of the issue. I've asked each of them, regardless of where they stood, what their number one reason to vote for or against Proposition 1. And while I thought the referendum was unnecessary and disrespectful to your decision, I'm glad that the topic of fair and equitable housing in Webster Groves has been discussed by so many. Here's what I heard, the top 3 reasons for each side. There were many answers, of course, but the bulk of them fall into these 3 buckets. For those that opposed Proposition 1, removal of an outdated restriction from 1956. 2, more options, choices to provide housing diversity to meet changing family needs, both for young and old. And 3, affordability to address the missing middle. And for those that were for Proposition 1, the 3 buckets that most of the answers fell into. Ordinance 9145 encourages tear downs of small houses and doesn't promote affordability, only serves developers. 2, to preserve the character of Webster Grove single-family homes and to reduce renting and absentee landlords. And the 3rd reason was that it was a discriminatory ordinance that should have applied to all the housing districts. As an eternal optimist, regardless of the outcome of the vote tonight, I'm encouraged that we are moving in the right direction. Many of the folks I talked to that said they were going to vote yes told me they would have voted no if the plan was bigger and bolder. All of those I talked to that said they voted no want more done. So I believe the momentum is there, regardless of the outcome, to move the conversation and actions forward. I know 5 council members agree. I'm encouraged that David wants to see bigger plans, and I believe the mayor is on board as well to continue this conversation, although perhaps not allow duplexes in all the places in every district. So finally, please keep the ball rolling with regard to housing diversification in Webster Groves. Maybe we need a housing commission. I know we do need, in addition to your 3-year-old stated goals for housing, a clear vision of what we want to provide our residents in terms of housing options. Thank you again. I appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clark.
Is there anybody else? No. Okay. All right, and we're going to continue along with our unfinished business and Councilwoman Arnold.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the third and final reading of Bill number 9155. And the subsequent adoption. Bill 9155, third and final reading. An ordinance of the city of Webster Groves, Missouri, amending certain provisions of chapter 4, article 15, TIP commission of the revised code of ordinances of the city of Webster Groves, Missouri, and matters related thereto.
Any questions or issues? Call for the vote.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander. Councilmember Richardson. Yes. Mayor Welch.
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold.
Yes.
Councilmember Cliff.
Yes.
All right, 9155 is passed. Does anyone care to remove anything from the consent agenda? If not, Councilmember Franklin, would you call for its approval, please?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the approval of adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander. Yes. Councilmember Richardson.
Yes.
Mayor Welch.
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold.
Yes.
Councilmember Cliff.
Yes.
Councilmember Frank.
Yes.
All right, we made 2 appointments this evening. We appointed Tammy Bain to the Business Development Commission and Peter Rubert to the Library Board. And now we need to go into executive closed session, but after the executive closed session, we will return to one of the work session topics, the last topic on our work session, which was the TIP commission. So that's our plan of action. So I need, I think it's attorney-client privilege, is it not?
I'm sorry, say.
The reason we're going into a executive closed session.
Section 1.
Section 1. All right.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for an executive closed session regarding attorney-client privilege communications, Missouri Section 610.021, open front, 1, closed front.
Second.
Councilmember Alexander.
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson.
Yes.
Mayor Welch.
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold.
Yes.
Councilmember Cliff.
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all. We will return to our work session topic after our executive closed session. We have some things that we need to decide tonight. We need to decide how to proceed to select our TIP commission members. And we can do a couple of things. We can look through the list tonight, talk about some that are yes, some that are no for us. We can invite them in perhaps next Tuesday evening for an interview, you know, our select group for an interview, and then make the decision from there. So we need to do that. We need to talk about who will represent us from the county group too. So there's a lot we need to decide tonight. So I'm wondering if we should just walk through this list of people who are here and see if there are perhaps a handful that we want to interview.
If I may, I think that's a great idea. Why don't we start with the county 6 and just get that out of the way?
Yes.
I can explain that really briefly, what you have to do there.
Yes.
The county executive has nominated 6 persons to the TIP commission because of the difference in the ambiguity in Missouri state law and special applications for us. You need to co-appoint 3 of those people to be on the TIP commission. So there are 3 seats that the county is appointing. There are 3 seats that the city is solely appointing. But then there's these 3 seats from the county executive's list, which you agree to include on the TIP commission. commission. So the six names are going to be on the TIF commission. This is really a formality. You can decide however you wish, which three are also your appointees. And that just solves that problem. And then really it's the list of 17 for those other three seats as the question for you and the process by which you appoint.
And I don't want to complicate it, but I agree with what Eric is saying, but what the county now does is inconsistent with our charter, because if you look at the way we are, it's different, but by co-appointing, you are bringing yourself into compliance with the charter. So and it's also making sure that the state statute and our charter are consistent. Because the two are goes against each other, the state statute. So
You have no power or authority to say, yeah, to rescind.
well, that's an interesting question because we've had this question, I mentioned this, we've had this question arise in Maryland. So under the statute as it exists right now, or on St. Louis County, it really doesn't apply to St. Louis County. It says the county is over 1 million people. St. Louis County does not have over 1 million people, and that is an issue. Okay, so what we are describing is a process that's based upon that statute that is currently on appeal before the Court of Appeals. I will tell you that a better way to do this, because that was an entirely different question in terms of what happened there, but it had to do with the numbers you have. The better way to do this is in keeping what Eric has described, because it gets us essentially to the same place. And if the state statute is overturned or its application is defined as it doesn't put this, we would always have that.
So is the easiest thing to move to take, say, the first three names, equal co-appointed?
Unless there is somebody knows someone on here. Would hire them. Their charge is different, isn't it?
Yeah, it is not, it's the same.
Well, they're all appointed, Mr. Singh.
Yeah.
Which is very common.
It's
Very common.
And these are all the same 6 people that he wants everyone.
Yes, exactly. But you see, that it's all.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yeah. Let's go ahead.
I move that Stephanie Leon Streeter, Jacob Turnbull, and Andrea Nelson Roberts be co-appointed by Webster Groves to the City Commission.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's call for the one.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander?
Yeah.
Councilmember Richardson?
Yes.
Mayor Welch?
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold?
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
Yes.
Okay, now we get to deal with the 17 votes. I presume everybody's gone through the list pretty carefully, and I don't know what criteria you have. I can tell you my criteria for going through the list was finding somebody who understood financial information, that there was some evidence of that, and someone who hadn't taken a position on the project. Because I think that if we get someone who hasn't taken a position, you're dealing with somebody who comes with a cleaner perspective. So I don't want to put somebody, for me, I would want to put somebody on there because a yes or a no. I don't know the other person. Let's go through the list and see.
We'll just go ahead and answer your question first. Do we have to pick between Mark Hinkle and Ed Scholl as taxing district representatives?
Answer that question for you. So the city, there is the one seat for all remaining tax districts, which the library board and the special business district are one of those taxing districts. Those bodies must, now that they've nominated two, the law presumes until they meet to send us one, that we can't seat a member. So often what happens is the 12th member never gets seated. There is that time. So Friday is the deadline. The letters that were sent. We do not hear from any of the remaining tax districts. I will call both the chairs of both of those organizations and ask them to get together, help facilitate that. That is not human power, and it's not a me power. Just helping to facilitate that hopefully they can come to an agreement on one of it. Anyone can attend the commission meetings, but it's really about who has the vote in that process.
Thank you.
So is more people applying individually then too?
He did apply individually, so he remains on your list of 17. So obviously you can dispense him with that how you wish, but he also is eligible in that category as nominated by the business.
And presumably if they appoint there, then it makes the next choice easy for the council district.
It does, yes.
I think that we have to be careful because Mark People has a relationship with Train Street.
Oh, no, I'm not saying,
All right, let's get on the list. Tell me whether you want to pull these folks in for an interview or not, and we'll see. Ryan Murphy,
I know Ryan well, I think Ryan would be good on the commission.
do you? Everybody agree then? So Ryan, is a yes for an interview?
Yes, that's fine.
All right. I know Paul, he served for a while on our planning commission. He was a really good planning commission member. I was just worried about his comment about that. Yeah, I know. I would too, so I would ask him about that. His comment about the time commitment. Can we put a yes and ask about time?
We want to call in and ask at a time or.
Before we even interview them, ask.
I mean, we know that the time that would be tell.
Yes, Eric.
So we, as we anticipated, and posted on the website, we anticipate at least 1 monthly meeting for the balance of 2021, potentially October, September, October with 2 meetings. That is up to TIF commission to decide. So we're looking at probably regular about 2-hour meetings. We may have one hearing, depending on how it may go for quite some time. All the meetings will be like this, will be Zoom, so TIF commission could be in person.
Okay, Brett Ronningham.
I know we're, good.
Ken Hart. Anybody really totally interested? Lauren Hotel.
That's good, yes. Yeah, we should bring that.
Yes. Elizabeth.
She's on one of our, sustainability. I think, so far we've only requested an interview. She's,
one of them.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll see. Paloma.
Yes, please. I think what there's a conflict, just based on the fact that it was on council, started this project. I'm happy to bring it up there.
Mark Hinkle. Have a little trouble since the Green Street people redid his project. Now, Phil Halls uses him constantly as an example of good work. Just, I think there's conflict.
Being the business owner in your community, that's, I mean, I don't know if we have anyone else that is right.
That would be a appropriate question.
Dan Dixon.
Information.
There's not much there.
That's not much there, no. Paul Ribbon.
Paul's got a lot of experience. So. I think we should talk to him though, because of the experience that we have. I didn't hear what.
The issue with
Was public.
Oh,
If you want to bring him in.
well, based on his application, I said.
Okay, Kyle Wilson. I thought he had some of the best things to say about applying for this commission. I thought his background was great and I agree with all that. Is there any problem that he then would, as a member of the ARB, subsequently have to pass judgment on part of this if it goes forward? I don't know that there is because there's such distinct responsibility.
I think it's not illegal yet. Okay, it could be an issue, but it's not illegal.
Well, if it's not, what do you mean it could be an issue if it's not legal?
Well, it means he's not permitted from it, nothing about what we have, nothing in the charter, nothing in our code says that that's a problem. It doesn't say you can't serve on two commissions, you couldn't serve on two different boards. Again, he might be uncomfortable with it, would be a question that you can ask him. Yeah, and the same thing, you separate these issues and recognize that they're answering two different questions, and the powers and purposes of two different things. So it is not a legal document.
Well, I think with his background, he would be knowledgeable and very familiar with things, just lend his knowledge and expertise quite easily to the process.
On the ARB,
Right. He's a good guy.
You consider that a situation.
Mike Jennings? No. No.
he's good, I used to sell to St. Louis 10 years ago.
I just want to make sure, I just want to be careful, like, just because we don't know how this council does it. School.
It'd be hard, we got so many, if we had a very different amount of information from each person, and in some cases, we don't have very much.
Yeah, there's hardly any information from him.
10 years. Here it is, a little bit more detail in the application.
Really shy. Yeah, I'd like to interview her. It sounds like her experience. Yeah.
She's also my next door neighbor, and she has been giving meal and beer we got the chefs.
Beautiful and pleasant.
Yeah.
So she sounds like a big yes.
Can you skip the water?
Oh, nice. Skipped, don't over. Somewhere along the way, I said Bill Booker, I'm sorry, what do we think? I think he's a physician.
And I know he's had experience on some people. I like it. Great man.
Bill Booker, yes, in time, yeah.
Yes.
Robert New? No?
I don't know who he is, but just not enough information.
Okay. Yes or no?
What's the Webster Chair Committee that he's referring to?
I don't know.
Was he in the legislative commission previously?
I don't know.
No.
Cindy.
He has been, years ago. I know. I'm looking for some of those. Gene Brockland, who was a past member of our TIP commission, that's almost a knowledge. I like it.
Comes out of the lower. I like you.
Would you recommend it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think he has the experience.
Right.
Oh, one more is,
Zach Langmeyer, Merkel, whatever his name is.
That was
the new one that's got today.
I worked with Zach, so I obviously realized the cost was there, but Zach. My whole attorney.
So Zach, so we're gonna do Zach. All right, we'll do that for
You call
and then are we gonna ask Mr. Wright about the time commitment before making?
Yes. So we had a lot of folks to set up with an interview. We did this over Zoom, giving everybody like 10 minutes. We give everybody in 10 minutes.
Should we have any pre-prepared questions? Seven questions that was asked.
I would suggest, Mayor and Council, that you do have a set of questions, of course, if you say appropriate follow-up questions, but you did only cover it down to 13 and 17, so it's having those concise questions of interest you might help define the process now.
Four questions. What are the questions? What do we want to know?
Eric, so I can certainly grab some of that email and not to you all, provide you that individualized comment, there's no reply all. So we can do that. If you're looking for 10 minutes, you can think about that. You're really 4 might be a stretch, maybe 3 minutes to actually get through it. Well, I know like 10 minutes, but I don't want to get in a rush. Just because of time, I'd rather take our time and get it done.
Well, 10 minutes is 2 hours just with the interviews plus pursue to discuss like.
I mean, I just don't want to get in there and say, okay, it's 10 minutes. Let's go to the next.
And what is it that you want to know? I want to know about their financial acumen, the experience that they have of being able to read and interpret financial information. Because that's what the TIP commission is all about, is that financial. That's something I would want to know. I want to know if they have taken a strong position for or against the government, because what you really want is somebody who's going in there without some hard way they want this commission to go. Those are the 2 things I want.
So can Eric draft a set of questions?
1, 2 questions. Somebody have another thing that they want to know?
The only thing I would like to know is if they can kind of, be impartial about whatever's happening at the moment.
Yes.
Kind of jury. So rise above the chatter.
If you're going to draft the question, then perhaps what we would do would be forward it to them and say, address these points, be prepared to speak to these points.
Yeah.
Give them a heads up, so you'll get through your time more efficiently and more effectively. So perhaps Eric and I and Marie can put our heads together and come up with something that can address these questions, partiality, experience, those sorts of things.
That's financial.
And we'll send it on to you all.
Okay, very good. And then we can set this up for.
So we have, if you remember, I was hoping we could meet next Tuesday. We're hoping the TIP commission will meet on the 18th.
Okay.
So next Tuesday, the 10th would work. We can do it by Zoom, you don't have to be here, we'll certainly make the room because it's a public meeting. But also what time will work best, obviously, we don't want to go too late in the meeting, so start at 6 again, those kinds of questions.
That work for everybody?
Do it on the 10th, yes.
Yeah.
Tuesday the 10th.
It sounds terrible.
Yes. Maybe I will have cake or else.
Yes. Oh, okay. No.
So, I will do my best to come in via Zoom. I will be in Minnesota with my daughter, so.
That was just a target they had in mind. So there's a better.
No, it cannot wait. No.
It's a process. Doesn't matter. No, I just put that target.
I'm on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Just so they know, there's a quorum without a quorum. So they can get started with meeting schedules and that sort of thing. I like the appointments here. That they can initiate that.
I agree on that, rather our persons be on board right from day one rather than. Yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. You can, yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed. So Tuesday is agreed upon dates, and I missed the time for that. which you all have started.
Six. Or we do all with 5.
I can't guarantee 5.
Can't do 5, so 6 o'clock.
Looks like it.
Guys, I'm
So we'll have to leave the room here. Do we have, can we all be on Zoom or do we want to do the room?
That's whatever preference. What do you guys want to do? You want to do it in person and Zoom? Okay. And if they can't, we'll do this one.
Yeah, all the screens are closed.
4 or 5 there. Yeah, thank you.
So the applicants can either come via Zoom or in person.
Okay. All right, anything else? We need a liaison, council liaison.
I actually recommend we sign the.
I'd be happy to accept.
That's a lot, you lucky man.
Yeah.
Right.
That okay with everyone?
Is it okay?
Yeah, I think we're going to be good questions for. Keep everybody on their toes.
All right. Okay, I think we're done.
Good,
And our section this evening and